financial year. Before we start, as usual, we do get the Minister of Police to kick off events with the opening remarks, but also we have a presentation of the crime statistics by our crime registrar, General Sekhukhune. But let me just introduce the panel before us. We have the Minister of Police. To his right is the Deputy Minister of Police. We have the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, General Fani Masemola. We also do have the National Head of the DPCI, Advocate, Lieutenant General Libya. We also do have the DNC of Policing, General Musigidi, and of course the acting Civil Secretariat of the Police Service, Mr. Ramaru, is with us today. And of course, the person who's going to be taking us through the crime figures this afternoon is the Crime Registrar, Major General Sekhukhune, who is on my left. Now with that, I would like to invite the Minister of Police to come and join us and take us through the opening remarks before we get the full presentation of the stats. Over to you, Minister.
Good morning, everybody. The Deputy Minister of the South African Police, Secretary of the Secretariat, National Commissioner of the South African Police, General Masemola, National Head of the DPCI, Advocate Dr. Lieutenant General Godfrey Libya, Deputy National Commissioners, Provincial Commissioners, all of you are here, senior officers, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Crime statistics we are releasing this afternoon reflect crime that were reported to the SAPS from the 1st of July up to the 30th September 2022. These crime figures are compared to the same period in 2021 when the country was under lockdown due to the outbreak of COVID-19. Between July to September 2021, the country was under lockdown level 4, 3, and 2. The rate at which women are abused, violated, and some killed in South Africa remains worrying and unacceptable. Many are killed by the people they know, people they love, and people they trust. As we edge closer to the commemorating the commencement of the global 16 days of activism against gender-based violence campaign on the 25th of November, the reality is women continue to be victims of violent crimes in South Africa. In the 3 months of reporting, a double-digit percentage increase was recorded for murder, attempted murder, and assault GBH against women. Over 13,000 women were victims of assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm between July and September 2022. 1,277 women were victims of attempted murder, and 989 women were murdered during this reporting period. Over 10,000 rape cases were opened with the SAPS between July and September this year. From a sample of 8,227 rape incidents that were perused, it was determined that 5,083, which is 62% of these incidents, occurred at the residence of the victims or perpetrator. This is 62%. It has moved from 50% where these incidents happened, in the places where people are supposed to be safe. 1,651 of the rape incidents occurred at a public place, such as streets, parks, beaches, and other areas. 69 people were raped at abandoned buildings. Mpumalanga is the only province to report a decrease in rape incidents. Inanda Police Station in KwaZulu-Natal, Mthatha in the Eastern Cape, and Delft in Western Cape are the 3 top stations with the highest rape cases. Buses, taxis, trains, and other models of public transport were the 3rd most likely places of occurrence for the rape incidents. Ladies and gentlemen, the crime statistics again show that we as communities continue to fail to protect some of the most vulnerable in society, our children. Last month, the kidnapping, rape, and brutal murder of 4-year-old Bohabo Puo shocked the nation and the world. A 4-year-old with so much to live for and look forward to, her life cut short by a man who has since been arrested. Shockingly, in just 6 months, 558 children were killed in South Africa from April to the end of September 2022. Police are investigating attempted murder dockets of 294 children from July to September 2022. 1,895 assault GBH cases with children as victims were opened with the police during this reporting period. It is on this note that the SAPS continue to prioritize gender-based violence and femicide-related crimes. Between July and September this year, the Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit, which is known as FCS, arrested 4,375 perpetrators of crime committed against women and children. In the last 2 financial years, 822 perpetrators of GBV crimes were sentenced to life sentence. 114 life sentences were handed down for GBVF crimes in the first 6 months of 2022-2023. Police traced and arrested 410 rapists during this reporting period. 68 of them have been sentenced to life behind bars. Members of media, it is very encouraging that the criminal justice system continues to send a strong message of zero tolerance on rape through the stiff sentences handed out to rapists. Allow me to touch on just a few of these sentences. 6 life sentences were handed down to Lebohang Nyoka in the Northern Cape for rape, housebreaking, and theft. For the rape of 2 minors aged 10, the court sentenced Ernest McCain to life imprisonment in Western Cape. In Gauteng, a 32-year-old Diepsloot serial rapist was found guilty and sentenced to 16 life sentences plus 250 years in prison for robbing and raping 16 women. 32-year-old Ashamoyo stalked and attacked his victims, threatening them with firearms before raping them. His youngest victim was 13-year-old. 33-year-old pastor Hlomelo Jwili was also sentenced to life in August for the rape of 33-year-old congregant. It is clear the broader civil society, religious organizations, and various community structures must sharply address the causes and preventative measures of crime against women and children, doing that together with the law enforcement and the police. Such conversations, combined with awareness program and action by the SAPS, are important, do lead to the prevention of this deeply disturbing gender-based violence. As a ministry, we remain extremely concerned about rapes at educational premises. In the 3 months of reporting, 83 rapes occurred at the educational facilities, including basic education, schools, and tertiary institutions. One needs to take into cognizance that educational facilities refer to the scenes of the crime and should not be interpreted to imply that all perpetrators and all victims were pupils or students. Let's talk a little bit about this DNA. The South African Police Service continued to take big steps towards ending the DNA backlog at our forensic service laboratories. The prioritization project of court-ready cases where there are outstanding forensic reports continue to gain momentum. Teams from the SAPS and the National Prosecuting Authority are working together with agility and have to date processed 17,410 court-ready gender-based violence and femicide cases. This is an increase of over 5,000 cases since the last crime statistics were released in August. The SAPS continue to improve its DNA management at our forensic science laboratories. Big steps have been taken towards ending the DNA backlog. The DNA specimens at our laboratories, as they stand, are 111,174. That is what, as we stand in laboratories. Out of this figure, 67,905 is DNA backlog, which has been reduced from 2,167 in May 2021. The rest of DNA specimen from the total of 111,174 figure, 43,269 falls within the allocated time of 113 days. So out of this 111,174, 43,000 is not the backlog. It falls within its prescribed time to be finished, which is 113 days in laboratory. Assurance has been made to this ministry that the SAPS will meet its deadline of clearing the DNA backlog. We have truly come a long way since the DNA backlog was first discovered at our forensic services laboratory in May 2021. Daily work and interventions continue to ensure the SAPS never goes back to the dark days where the DNA backlog reached levels over 200,000 cases. All hands are on the deck to capacitate and empower the forensic service laboratories to deliver a quality service for all South Africans. The crime figures show that aggression and violence are at worrying levels in South Africa. Violence meted not only against women and children, but violence playing out in our homes, on our roads, and even inside public safe spaces such as churches and schools is staggering. The July to September months saw a record number of assault cases reported to the police in 5 years. The SAPS across the country investigated a total of 85,640 assault GBV and common assault cases in the 3 months of reporting. Argument, road rage, provocation, and misunderstanding, as well as retaliation, revenge, and punishment remain the top motive for the GBH. 12,203 assault GBH cases took place behind closed doors, either at the home of the victim or the home of the perpetrator. The second most likely place of occurrence for assault GBH was at public places such as street, open field, recreational centers, or abandoned buildings. 6,662 assault GBH cases were domestic violence related. This means the perpetrator and victim had some type of domestic relations. 7,004 people were killed by other persons in South Africa in the second quarter of 2022-2023 financial year. This is an increase of 841 more people murdered compared to the same period in 2021, when the country was placed under COVID-19 lockdown for 3 and 2. Argument, misunderstanding, and incidents of road rage provocations accounted for 956 murders in the country. Vigilantism incidents claimed the lives of 528 people, while 362 people were killed during the commission of robbery. Inanda, Umla's police station in KwaZulu-Natal and Nyanga station in Western Cape registered the highest counts of murder during this period. A total of 274 counts of murder were reported in those 3 areas combined. Fighting crime has also come at a cost for the members of the South African Police Service across the country. 22 police officers were killed during July to September 2022. This is 2 members less compared to the same reporting period last year. It is on this note that the Ministry will never stop calling on SAPS members to defend themselves decisively at all times from ruthless criminals whenever they are under attack. It is quite simple. Police must meet fire with fire. Firearms remain the weapon of choice in most of the reported murders. 2,808 people were shot and killed. 961 of the reported murders in KwaZulu-Natal were as a result of firearms, followed by Gauteng with 768 murders. 526 people died from gunshot wound in the Western Cape. The high murder figures can also be attributed to the multiple murders where 2 or more people were killed in one incident. The SAPS is investigating 250 dockets of multiple murders within 558 victims. These include the mass shooting at the Mdlalose Tavern in Soweto, where 17 people were killed in July in a single shooting incident. Police have since arrested 5 suspects for their role in this shooting. The KwaZulu-Natal province recorded the highest number of multiple murders, followed by Gauteng and the Western Cape. Equally, the police in the 3 provinces continue to make arrests. Police operational responses nationwide should continue to remove guns and guns that are in the wrong hands. Trio crimes. Increases have been noted in crimes under subcategory aggravated robbery. The month of July 2022 saw the majority of carjacking, robbery at the residential and non-residential premises cases reported to the police. Commissioners and the management, more must be done to prevent and also respond to these crimes that are often carried out publicly in a violent manner. Over 6,000 carjacking were reported to the police from July to September 2022. While the Free State and Limpopo recorded decrease in carjacking, a 24% increase was observed nationally. A total of 356 vehicles were reported hijacked in Inyanga, Harare, and Philippi East combined, all in the Western Cape. Kidnapping has doubled nationally, with over 4,000 counts reported to the police between July and September 2022. Carjacking, robbery, and rape were the top 3 motives for the recorded kidnapping cases during July to September across the country. Management, Commissioner, the SAPS, especially in the Western Cape, has had several breakthroughs in kidnapping cases where victims have been safely reunited with their families. However, the police will be neglecting the constitutional mandate of protecting the inhabitants of the country and their property if the service does not deal decisively with these most feared crimes. Specialized intervention in provinces right down to station level must be bolstered to deal with carjacking, kidnapping cases, and other crimes in the trio category. Policing intervention should continue to be prioritized in identified hotspot areas to squeeze the opportunity for the criminals not to be able to breathe. Over and above the limited policing resources and personnel shortages, the SAPS has attended to 2,455 public protests from July to September 2022. These were both peaceful and violent demonstrations that mostly occurred in Gauteng with 563 protests, although 123 of them were regarded peaceful. While the overview of these crime statistics may be disheartening at a face value, they should not make us lose confidence in our endeavor to fight crime. The rule of law must stand firm in South Africa. The quarterly crime figures are a management tool to guide the SAPS and streamline policing operations by shifting resources to where they are needed most. It is clear that the SAPS will and must continue to sharpen its responses to crime, including arresting some members of the SAPS who choose to work against the law. organized crime is also being dealt a blow. We commend the ongoing arrest and take-down operations led by Interpol South Africa, where fugitives of justice continue to be traced and arrested. The latest arrest of wanted Israel gang leader and his 7 accomplices in Preston should serve as a stand to all that South Africa is not a hideout and playground for criminals. In closing, fellow citizens, the Police Ministry has learned with dismay of the vigilante acts allegedly by some Ashworthville resident who fatally assaulted and killed a man inside an ambulance. Such cowardice acts absolutely have no place in our society. We concede there is a room for improvement in the country's criminal justice, and we will continue to strengthen its functionality and improve working together as a cluster to ensure it remains trusted. We encourage communities to report crime and not take law in their own hands and allow the law to take its course. Equally, police are also directed to improve the quality of service they provide to communities. Lastly, as the country heads towards the festive season, criminals tend to be brazen as they try to undermine the rule of law. But this ministry is satisfied with the Provincial Safer Festive Season operational plans of the SAPS to safeguard the festive season. The inclusion of 10,000 more boots to the service in December will intensify police visibility during the festive season and beyond. More boots will be on the ground, and escalated crime prevention and crime combating operations will be a daily occurrence until the end of January 2023. Nothing will replace fighting crime than warm bodies. Police have their work cut out for them. Communities, young and old, also have a role to play towards lowering the crime rate in the country. We encourage active participation against the common enemy of crime through formal involvement, such as communities, policing forum, and other structures, or working together in improving policing footprint. Mphakathi, don't look away. Let us act against crime together. Iphoyisa ngumphakathi. Nomphakathi, umphakathi ngephoyisa. As such, I will invite the men who carry the raw figures on these matters. General Skokoni, come through, sir.
Good day, Minister of Police, DM, the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, General Masemola, the head of DPCI, General Lebeya, all protocol observed, members of the media, colleagues, all protocol observed. As the Minister has already indicated, I will be taking you through the Q1, Q2 crime statistics that is covering the period from the 1st of July up to the 30th of September 2023. The presentation, as is indicated there, will cover some of the highlighted areas, starting with the overview of the crime statistics for this particular period. One needs to indicate and explain what are the headings that had been indicated up there. The Minister indicated that we are comparing a period where we were under lockdown level 4, 3, and 2, where the country was at different levels of restrictions, compared to a period where there are no restrictions at all. Then with that in mind, when we look at the figures that had been reported to the police, for contact crimes, we have a murder that has increased by 841 counts, resulting in a 13.6% increase. Sexual offenses increased by 1,319. Attempted murder increased by 998. Assault GBH increased by 5,626. Common assault increased by 7,252. Common robbery increased by 2,405. Robbery with aggravating circumstances increased by 6,992. Then overall, the total contact crimes increased by 25,373. We had, in the previous quarter, recorded 137,145 counts of contact crimes. Currently, we have recorded 162,518. Now, when we go down into breaking down the sexual offenses, which are made up of the rape, sexual assault, attempted sexual offenses, and contact sexual offenses, looking at the rape for the current particular quarter, we had recorded an increase of 1,034 rapes. That is from 9,556. Currently, we have recorded 10,590, resulting in a percentage increase of 10.8. Carjacking, which are subcategories of robbery with aggravating circumstances, made up of carjacking, robbery with aggravating, robbery at residential premises, robbery at non-residential, cash in transit and bank robbery, also truck hijacking. We have recorded increases across all those subcategories that are making up robbery with aggravating circumstances, with carjacking having increased by 1,174. Then robbery at residential premises increased by 453. Robbery at non-residential premises, an increase of 427. We had 4 counts of cash in transit robberies from 52 to 56. Then bank robberies, we had 2 counts more, and then truck hijacking, we had 151 counts more. Now, taking into consideration the population and then computing what is called the per capita crimes, that is only calculated for crimes against a person, and we use the mid-year population estimates. The 2021 series has been obtained from Stats SA. Now, looking at that, we see that currently, for the current quarter, we have 12 murders per 100,000, rapes is 17 per 100,000, attempted murder is 10 per 100,000, assault GBH is 68 per 100,000, common assault 73 per 100,000, common robbery 20 per 100,000. Then looking at specifically the murders and going into the provincial breakdown, comparing each murders, the murders that had been reported in each province together with the population of that particular province, we see that the Eastern Cape had the highest per capita ratio for murders of 19.7 per 100,000. KwaZulu-Natal was the second highest with 16.0 per 100,000. Western Cape 14.5 per 100,000. Gauteng was 9.8 per 100,000. And the Free State and the Northern Cape were jointly at 7.9 per 100,000. Mpumalanga 7.0 per 100,000. Northwest 6.3 per 100,000. And Limpopo 4.5 per 100,000 murders. Then completing the table, we had a decrease in terms of contact-related crimes, specifically the crime of arson, a decrease of 17.7%, and the overall category of contact-related crimes increased by 4.9%. Then on property-related crimes, we had a decrease in terms of burglary at non-residential premises of 3,180, resulting in 16.9% decrease. Then for burglary at residential premises, we had an increase of 4,601. Theft of motor vehicle and motorcycle, an increase of 1,216. Theft out of or motor vehicle, we had an increase of 3,325, and stock theft, an increase of 679. Overall, total property-related crimes increased by 6,641. Then going on to the 17 community reported crimes for the current quarter, we had an increase of 51,991 from 350,519 to 402,910, resulting in a percentage increase of 14.8. Then for crime detected as a result of police action where the desired level or direction of change should be on the up, meaning that it is a proxy variable for proactive policing. We had illegal possession of firearms. We had more cases of 692. Drug-related crimes, an increase of 8,732. Driving under the influence of alcohol and or drugs, an increase of 3,112. Sexual offenses detected as a result of police action, an increase of 632. Then overall, we had more crime that have been detected by the police. That is 13,168 more crimes that had been detected by the police. 17 community reported crimes in a graphical presentation, taking into consideration the months that make up the quarter that we are reporting in. We have increases across mostly of the crimes in the month of July, whereby in the 17 community reported crimes, we had an increase of 28,565. In July, an increase of 12,596. In September, an increase of 10,830, and we had recorded increases across all the provinces. Top 30 stations for the 17 community reported crimes. I'll go only on to the 5. We had the highest station with the station with the highest number of reported 17 community reported crimes was Cape Town Central, an increase of 1,273. Honeydew in Gauteng, an increase of 613. Durban Central at number 3, an increase of 260. Mitchell's Plain in the Western Cape, an increase of 307. And those make up your top 5 stations in terms of the 17 community reported crimes. Then going into the details, we had the 17 community reported crime. Now going into the contact crimes. Again, in the month of July, we had an increase of 17,339. In August, 4,054. In September, 3,980. And again, we had increases across all the 9 provinces. Top stations in terms of contact crimes. Number 1 is Nyanga with 154 increase. Johannesburg Central, 174 increase. Mfuleni at number 3 in the Western Cape with 192. Tembisa at number 4 with 190. Durban Central at number 5 with 344, making up the top 5 stations in terms of the combined contact crimes. Now, on this particular slide, we look at the causative factors that had been reported when the particular crimes had been committed. We will only focus on the causative factors for the crime of murder. We had drawn a sample of 6,342, and from that analysis of the 6,342 murders that had been reported, when we looked into what were the rationale or the reasons for that crime to have occurred, it was indicated that 956 of these were as a result of misunderstanding, arguments, and road rage. Vigilantism was the second highest contributor to murder with 528. Robbery was indicated as the cause in 362 of the murders. Retaliation or revenge was indicated in 348 of the murders. Gang-related was indicated in 202 of the murders, whereby the majority of those murders happened in the province of the Western Cape. During the commission of another crime, not robbery or rape, 77 incidents of the murders were indicated to have happened during the commission of other crimes. We also had 69 hijacking and attempts that resulted in murders. Taxi-related murders were 64. Law enforcement, security, and security guards in the line of duty were attributed to 24 of the murders. Intervention in an argument, 23. Rape-related, 21. Illicit mining, 17. Then, when we look at the place of occurrence, again, from the same sample size, of 6,342. I will only again focus on the murders. What I need to clarify on these slides is that we are only looking at the place or the scene of crime where the crime has happened. We are not going into the details of who was involved and who was not involved, who was the victim or who was not the victim. For instance, if you look at agricultural land, farm, plot and small holdings, we are only looking at the place where the crime has happened. We are not looking at the incident whereby it can be classified as a farm murder, because the definition of a farm murder necessitates that that particular crime should have an impact on the operation of that particular farm. These here, we also include cases where there was domestic violence, where people in a farm were drinking alcohol together and they ended up fighting and stabbing each other. And it should therefore not be confused with farm murders. This is just the place where the murder has happened. Again, to clarify further on educational institutions, we say there were 19 murders that happened at educational institutions. We indicate universities, school, colleges, daycare facilities, etc. We are not in any means implying that the victim and the perpetrators were school-going children. What we are saying is that somebody might have been coming from a shebeen in location X. As he was passing or walking by a school, he gets dragged. It might include children, but it is not exclusively only children. And when you also look at the days of the week on which some of these crimes happened, some of these crimes happened on Saturday, Sunday, etc., which are days whereby children are not normally in school. Now, look. Then we talked about educational institutions. We talked about there were also 3 murders that had happened at the prison or a holding cell. I guess the rest of the places where the murders have occurred can be extracted from that particular slide. Then looking at the crimes against women and children, whereby we separated the women on the left-hand side and we had the children on the other side. We had selected the crimes of murder, attempted murder, and assault GBH. And for the current quarter, we had 989 murders that had been committed against women. Attempted murders was 1,277, and assault GBH 13,701. This resulted in 92 more murders of women, 122 more attempted murders of women, and 1,877 more assault GBH against women. Then looking at the children between the ages of 0 and 17, combining both boys and girls, we had 28 more murders of children, from 287 to 315 in the current quarter. Then attempted murder, we had 11 more attempted murders of children, from 283 to 294. And then assault GBH of children, we had 225 counts more, from 1,670 to 1,895 in the current quarter. Then the total of the murders that had been reported. Again, this slide, if you look on all the crimes that we had presented, the month of July, across most of the crimes, was the month whereby we had most of the increases. Similarly, for murder, we had 659 murders more in the month of July. In the month of August, we had 72 murders more. In the month of September, we had 110 murders more. And these murders, the province that had recorded a decrease in terms of the murder was the province of the Free State with 20 counts less. Top 30 stations for murder, they are led there at the first two from the province of KwaZulu-Natal, Inanda and Umlazi. Then number 3 and 4 are in the Western Cape, Nyanga and Delft. Then places Liar in KwaZulu-Natal, making up the top 5 stations that had reported the highest volumes of murder in the current quarter. Then when we look at the provincial breakdown, we have already touched on this particular slide in terms of what were the causative factors. Now we look in terms of the provincial breakdown and see which of the provinces had recorded a particular phenomenon as the most frequently occurring causative factor for the murder. Looking at arguments, we had KZN having reported 298 murders attributed to arguments and misunderstanding. Then the second highest was the province of Western Cape with 176, Gauteng 141 at number 3, and the Eastern Cape at number 4 with 127 of the murders attributable to arguments and misunderstandings. Then gang-related murders, that is number 5 from the top. We indicated that we had 202 murders that had been attributed to gang-related, and of these 202, 175 was in the province of the Western Cape, and 15 was in the province of Gauteng, and also Eastern Cape, we had 9 murders. Taxi-related murders, we had reported 64. Then of these 64, 34 happened in the province of Gauteng. Then KZN and the Western Cape each had 14 counts of murder attributable to taxi-related. Of course, we have had illicit mining, whereby 17 of the murders were attributable to illicit mining, and of these murders, 13 were reported to have taken place in the province of Gauteng, and then 4 in the province of Limpopo. Multiple murders, I don't think I'll need to spend more time on this particular slide. The minister indicated that the police are investigating 250 dockets that had resulted in 278 bodies. However, when you look at the multiple murders, ones that stand out in this particular quarter are the murders of the initially 16 people that were shot at the Mdlalose Tavern in Orlando. Then subsequently, one of the people that were shot subsequently succumbed to his injuries at the hospital, resulting in 17 murders that had been killed in one incident. Then we also had 2 instances in Marion Hill, whereby 7 people were killed in each of the incidents, whereby the first 7 were killed in a spaza shop, where initially 6 people died and the 7th one succumbed to the injuries in a hospital. Then we also had another 7 incident whereby we had 7 people gunned down inside the house. Then we also had an incident of farm murder whereby 7 people were murdered, and of those people that were murdered, 5 were farm workers and the wife of the farmer and also the stepson of the child. This farm murder happened during the commission of a house robbery. Then the preferred weapon of choice in the commission of the murders, it was indicated that firearms was the most frequently used weapon to commit the firearm. As it is indicated there, we have 2,808 bodies that were killed. That does not in any way imply that these people were each individually shot with one firearm. Multiple people might have been killed with one firearm. So there is no one-to-one correlation between the bodies and the firearms. All what it indicates is that 2,808 people were killed. Then I'll skip the matters on farms except to say that these are police matters. The minister indicated that we had two less police officers that were killed. Of this 22, 18 were killed while they were off duty and 4 were killed while they were on duty. Then farm matters, I'll skip this one and go to the rapes. We had an increase of rapes of 1,086 in the month of July, followed by decreases in the month of August and September of 12 and 40 respectively, and the province of Mpumalanga recorded a decrease in terms of the rapes. Then the top 30 stations in the rapes, they are led by Inanda, Mthatha, Delft, Lusikisiki, and Thohoyandou, making up the top 5 rape stations. Then looking at the places of occurrence, similar analogy to what we have explained in terms of the matter, it applies again here. We had most of the rapes from a sample of 8,227 having been indicated to have happened at the residence of the perpetrator, which was attributed to 5,083. We also had public places attributable to 1,651. We also had educational institutions where we had, it's 83 rapes. Then we had rapes that had also happened in abandoned buildings, 69, of which most of those happened in the province of the Eastern Cape, 17, and then Gauteng with 15, and then Western Cape with 10. Then where it was indicated specifically that the victim or the perpetrator had used alcohol prior to the commission of the crimes, we had 1,520 rapes having been indicated to have involved the use of alcohol, and 154 rapes indicating that there was the use of drugs. Then 281 of the murders, alcohol was used, 21 drugs were used. Specific places where the murders had happened, 267 was indicated to have happened at a place where alcohol is being sold, that is either at a tavern, a shebeen, or a public places, and 275 attempted murders happened at such facilities, 65 rapes at such facilities. Again, the weapon of choice that had been used to commit the murders in these facilities was firearms, with 133. Then murders and rape at educational premises, we had indicated that 67 of the rapes, 83 of the rapes had happened at schools, that is covering primary, secondary, and high school, and I have indicated that this does not in any way imply that the victims nor the perpetrators were school-going children, as in some instances when you go into the details, you find that the people that were murdered or raped are above the age of school-going, that is 50s, 60s, etc., and some of these rapes and murders happened on days which schooling is not happening, that is on Saturdays and Sunday, and the rest of the breakdown in terms of where the rapes and the murders have happened can be extracted from the slide. Then domestic violence related, this is what we use as a proxy for gender-based violence, whereby we had instances of 239 murders whereby it was indicated that there was some kind of a domestic relationship between the victim and the perpetrator, be it husband, ex-husband, current boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, etc. And of these crimes, 130 victims were female and 109 were male. The rest can be seen from the slide. Okay, maybe let me talk about the rapes. We had 835 rapes that were attributable to domestic violence, and 793 of these victims were female. Then the trio crimes, again, the same pattern that we had seen across all the crimes, an increase in July, and all the provinces having recorded increases. Then the top station is Nyanga, Plessis, Liar, Tembisa, Harare, and Oliver Noordbosch, making up the top 5. Then carjacking, the same pattern that we had seen across all the other crimes, the month of July being the highest, 756. In August, we had 344 increase. And then in September, we had an increase of 71, and the provinces that recorded decreases was the province of the Free State and Limpopo of 3 and 21 respectively. Then in carjacking, we had the top 3 stations that are all in the Western Cape, with Nyanga at number 1, Harare at number 2, and Philippi East at number 3. Then number 4 and 5, we have stations in Gauteng, that is Pretoria West and Olivenhout-Bosch. Robbery at residential premises, the pattern repeats itself. The highest increase was in the month of July of 300, and the provinces that recorded decreases was the province of the Free State, the Northern Cape, and the Western Cape. The respective decreases was 27, 3, and 83 in the Western Cape. Then top stations, we have top 3 stations for robbery at residential premises led by Plessis, Liar, Kwadukuza, and Umlazi, all the 3 stations in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Then robbery at non-residential premises, again the highest increase was in the month of July. We had a decrease in the month of September of 50, and the province that recorded a decrease was in the Eastern Cape with 11 counts less compared to the similar period. Then in terms of the top 30 stations, they are led by Johannesburg Central in Gauteng, number 2 Thohoyandou in Limpopo, 3 East London, 4 Pietermaritzburg, and 5 Durban Central in KwaZulu-Natal, making up the top 5. Cash in transit robberies, we had a decrease in the month of July of 1, and September, again we had a decrease of 6. However, we had an increase of 11 in the month of August. Then the types of CIT, we had 8 incidents in the Eastern Cape where the armored vehicle was on the road, 7 in Gauteng where the armored vehicle was on the road, and we also had 8 incidents where there was cross pavement in the province of Gauteng, and 5 where there was cross pavements in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Truck hijacking, the pattern is the same. The only province that recorded a decrease was the province of Free State. Then the top station is Mpumalanga at number 1 with Dalmas. Then from number 2 up to number 12, the stations are all in the province of Gauteng. Then kidnapping, similar pattern. We had increases in the month of July, August, and September of 801, 661, 566 respectively for the month of July, August, and September, and all the provinces recorded increases in terms of the kidnapping. Then from the top 30 stations, we had the top 3 stations in kidnapping are all in the province of Gauteng, that is Vosloorus, Durban Central, and Tembisa in Gauteng. Number 4 is Delmas, then again number 5, Midrand in Gauteng, making up the top 5. Then from a sample of 3,648, we looked into the circumstances around when the kidnapping happened, and most of the circumstances were attributable to hijacking related. That will be an incident whereby when a vehicle is being hijacked, the driver is also taken along and then maybe dumped somewhere at a later stage. Then we had 1,639 robbery related, and we also had 331 rape related kidnappings. Then we had 235 taxi related kidnappings. Then property related crimes, which is the sum total of the 5 crimes that we had indicated at the beginning of the slides. Again, we had increases in the month of July, August, and September. And the only province that had recorded a decrease was the province of KwaZulu-Natal, with 2,344 counts less in terms of property related. Then the top stations in property related, they are led by Cape Town Central, Rustenburg number 2, Honeydew Park Road, and Stellenbosch, making the top 5. Then we had increases in terms of the stock theft in July, August, and September of 236, 385, and 58 for the respective months of July, August, and September, and all the provinces recorded increases. Then stock theft, the top 30 station, number 1 is Tumbu and number 2 is Tsolo, both in the Eastern Cape. Core diversion, that will be instances whereby the police resources are taken to go and police protests, and of which some of these protests are peaceful and some of these protests are unrest. The minister indicated that Gauteng had the most peaceful public protest of 444, and KwaZulu-Natal was the second with 39. However, KwaZulu-Natal was the highest in terms of unrest with 169, and Gauteng at number 2 with 123. And I guess that, ladies and gentlemen, Minister, members of the media, that is the summary of Q2 crime statistics. I thank you.
Thank you so much, General Sukune, for that presentation. I do want to remind this media briefing that it is a full house of SAPS this morning. Of course, we do have a panel before us, but we also do have all 9 provincial commissioners who are here to obviously account and also to give us some light as to what is happening within their respective provinces around the crime picture that was represented here today. But with that, let's open up for some questions, please. You know the drill. I'll have to see you first, so raise your hand. And also, please identify the publication or the media outlet that you represent and who your question is directed to. And we'll also take some questions from our WhatsApp through the work and courtesy of GCIS. But let's start here in Pretoria. Can you maybe stand so we can actually see you? Thank you. Okay, we're just waiting for the microphone. We can hear you. Go ahead.
The name is from Africa. My question is related to the robbery, particularly when you look at non-residential premises. At Causative station, Bank is featuring robbery of cash in transit trends. Again, we see that Delmas in Mpumalanga and truck hijacking specifically is featuring there. Kidnapping, we also have Delmas in Mpumalanga. Is there a problem in Mpumalanga when it comes to robbery, particularly when it comes to truck hijacking as well as commercial property? And would that kidnapping be related to those truck hijackings and the robberies at those commercial properties?
All right, Dumala, we did not hear your question, obviously, because there's no microphone, but there also is a request that colleagues who are going to be asking questions just come a bit forward because we're not able to see you because of this very bright light that's in front of us. But essentially, there is a question around robberies, especially in the Mpumalanga area. Is there maybe a pattern that has been picked up by the SAPS? Is that a fair summary? And that question is to the SAPS, so we'll take that question. And let's take the second question, please. Khomoto? We need to really sort out the microphone situation, colleagues, please. Please do come to the front, yes.
Thank you. My question is for the Minister. I've noted you speaking about fighting fire with fire, or police, obviously fighting fire with fire. But the numbers that we're seeing, particularly around Lebanon, and the culprits that we're seeing in terms of the areas, Inand and so forth, continue to feature. Is the fighting with fire working according to you? Is this a policing tactic that is resulting in fruits for you and your team? I have noticed that you said police officers, very few police officers have died, and that's a good thing. However, we're trying to get to a point where none of them are dying. And then my colleague asked a question about the kidnapping, which is one that I would like to echo as well. And then, are you at all concerned about Joburg and Gauteng, particularly with the challenges with the JMPD vehicles, policing issues? I know it's not your competency, but because of them and the challenges that they're going to be experiencing in terms of reaching the areas in Joburg, your men and you are going to have to stand in the gap. Are you concerned? Do you have the capacity to do so? What is your plan?
All right, Khomoto, those are 2 questions. Kidnappings as well as fighting fire with fire. Are we winning with that microphone, colleagues? Let's take, there was one more before you, my brother. There was one more that I did identify. I just can't see now. Okay, we'll take you.
Yes, my question is for the Minister. It's Carl Kemp. I'm a freelance reporter. Minister, with respect to mob justice now being the second leading causative factor, and also with respect to the fact that during a parliamentary hearing, I think it was last month, that you mentioned that the SAPS is losing officers to retirement at an undesirable rate. Is there any connection between the two? And how concerned is SAPS about the rise in mob justice incidents?
Vigilantism, of course, something that was sharply raised in the Minister's speech today. That's the third question. I'm going to ask you, Minister, to please take those questions and, of course, also allow for the National Commissioner to also comment around the patterns that have been picked up in Mpumalanga. Over to you, Minister.
Fire with fire. Surely you would have expected me to say fire with water. Maybe most of this will also answer the question that has been made by a member of the Portfolio Committee since I was in Cape Town last week, that Cele must be fired because they said police must do this. The South African police, they police under a constitutional democracy, under a human right dispensation. Therefore, they must take that on board whenever. I'm sure you saw, I think the last but one slide, of the protest and all those protests in different provinces. That policing should be completely different when it comes to that, even the training, the techniques and all that, where police, they use the shields, they end up using the water and all other things. There should be a minimum kind of injury and minimum kind of hard techniques when it deals with those people that have their rights constitutionally to deal with those matters. We encourage that, we call on that, but sometimes the South Africans and people that are having their rights, they must read that other people have rights too, in terms of property, in terms of violence, and police will have to work hard to stop that. Negotiations is part of working on that, to approach, speak to the leadership, approach, call the people to come and negotiate with those people. But there is policing that does not need negotiations, doesn't. When people plan cash heist, they don't carry broomsticks, they don't carry yellow dust. They carry guns, and those guns are for elimination of every and anybody that stand on their way. Therefore, police must be able to respond accordingly. When you come to the scene of cash heist, those guys are ready to shoot and kill. So police must also protect themselves on a hard stuff. When those people, they hijack the truck, and police find that, when those people, they go to the police station and they steal firearms, police, they know that by the time they approach you, you are already armed. So they have no business to negotiate with you when you are armed, when you deliberately and desperately stole the firearms so that you are able to shoot to them. So that what is in the hands of those criminals is fire. So we are not going to be negotiating to say, please, don't use the guns you stole to shoot me. They stolen those guys exactly for that, to shoot you. So this fire to fire, does that work? Yes, it does work. Otherwise, police would be dying almost every day. I'm sure you do follow the operations. Many of them, they've been quite late, those operations, where police, they exchange fire after they've been shot, And fortunately, most of these incidents at the present moment, police, they win those. And if those police were shouting to say, please, don't shoot us, we'll be picking those police dead. It can't be police that will pick them dead when it comes to that. That fire to fire works, but as I've said, the category of working of the police is different. So I would say that works. Maybe operationally they also work on the JPMD. It's worrying. You ask if it's not a concern. It is a concern because that it's on the multiple approach of the police. Remember, we do work with all other agencies, especially the Metro Police and all. If the cars go, if all these cars go, which means where we would have had 3 or 4 cars when we double with the police, would have 1, where we would have people driving and walking together, that will be reduced. But operational people, especially more Kaimulao people that are very much involved in that kind, they can work on that. The rising of mob justice is a concern, no doubt about it. It's a concern when you look at those figures. It tells 2 things. It tells that, you know, these mob justice, if there is such thing, that's why we choose to call it vigilantism. When you begin to come close to it, you find that is not from the people that do it, it's organized, which means there are criminals that stand behind the genuine grievances of the communities and make them to do things that are wrong. Hence, most of the time when those people are arrested, of which we're encouraging, that there must be consequences of anybody takes law in his or her hands, you find that it's not all that team, all that big number of people, but you focus and you are reduced to a people that have been agitators and those people that organize that thing to happen for their own benefit. Let's take this one of Bara. Bara gets arrested in Western Cape for serious things, including 19 dead bodies that are counted on his head in Khayelitsha. But people, they march for Bara to be released. And you find that Bara and his few cohorts, they are organizing that those people must do that. Indeed, the number of police that is kept reducing, it does open the space of late response and very reduced visibility where police could have been there instead of them coming late because they are few and all that. But we are glad that we have this 10,000, which is not going to do much difference, but it will help us a little bit. Come December 15, we'll unleash there and training going forward. The figures will help that police respond quickly so that this vigilantism does not take space there. So your question of Delmas, I think Commissioner or Provincial Commissioner, they will deal with that. And I think they'll further elaborate on the question of the JMP and what we'll do in terms of actual operations. Thanks.
Thanks, Lorenzo and the Minister, Deputy Minister and colleagues. With regard to Delmas, yes, it has become a hotspot. You will recall that earlier this year, we also had to engage CIT suspects in that area, which were able to win because we were able to Our members came out uninjured, and there were fatalities from the suspects. It's an area which is frequented by trucks. There is a number of trucks that traverse that area, including coal trucks. So that's why it is a problem. And we do have a deployment that is both national and the province of Mpumalanga, which we deployed in that area, including your Wheatbank as well as Middelburg, to stabilize the mining area and the problems related to that. I think that was it.
All right, that answers the first batch of questions. I just want to double check with Lieutenant General Manamela if she would like to add anything on that apart your province. Is that a nod or a, you're good, okay. Let's take the second round of questions, colleagues. Let me again see some hands, and as I've mentioned, please just come to the front so we are able to see you as you raise your questions. Are there any questions there? I think we're sorted. So we only have one round of questions, Minister, DM, General. It will clearly mean that everything was quite thorough. Okay, there is one more. All right, just come to the front, please. I'm barely able to see you, and no one at the front here can see you as well. And while you prepare your question, oh, that's from the WhatsApp, right? Wonderful. Please take us through. How many do you have?
Thank you. I think I have 6 questions.
Cool.
And the first one is coming from Oliver. And the question is, with the number of kidnapping recorded in this quarter, and with the festive season approaching, what measures are being put in place by SAPS to combat this crime, especially during this coming season? And also, what guidelines or advice can SAPS give to women and children, as they are mostly targets of kidnapping, to avoid doing in order to prevent being kidnapped during the festive season? And the following questions are from Marvin Adams. And the questions are, has the state firearms that were sold by former SAPS Kenneth Chris Provincial contributed to the escalation of violence in recent years? And how many of Provincial firearms were recovered? And the following question is, what has SAPS done with regards to the National Action Plan of 2019 to combat xenophobia? And how many incidents of xenophobia were reported? And what the percentage of crime that is committed or that were committed by migrants, and what are the sort of crimes that migrants have been convicted for? And as Marvin Adams continues, with the mass shootings, were these done by automatic firearms? Can you tell us the model? And the SAPS included active shooter training for its members. And should there be a legislation that will deal with mass shootings or active shooter situations, or does SAPS policy speak to these? And are SAPS prepared for the next mass shooting incident? And in relation to the issues of rape cases, just for clarity, is the rape of men, the rape of women inclusive? And the last question comes from Pel Maguani from SAPS News. The question is, according to Missing Children SA, the last crime stats that focus on missing children were highlighted in 2013. And they state that every 5 hours a child goes missing. Is this still a true reflection given the apparent rise in child and human trafficking? Thanks.
Okay, there's quite a lot of questions. But I've just been advised by the crime registrar regarding the rape question, if it's women, men, or children. It doesn't discriminate. Rape is regardless of sex, and that's what the crime registrar would like me to communicate. So we will take those questions, Minister. There were quite a few of them. I think some of them maybe they would need repetition, but just to summarize, there's questions around kidnappings over the festive season, and a very important question around maybe some tips and guidelines for women and children to avoid being kidnapped or to avert that sort of unfortunate incident happening to them. And the state firearms that were stolen by the former police officer Prince Lou, have they contributed to the violent crimes? And how many of those arms have been received? There's also a question around mass shootings. What sort of arms are being used in these mass shootings? And is there any legislation to deal with active shooters and mass shooters? And there's also a question also attached to that. SAPS prepared for mass shootings, and there's also questions around missing children, which I would ask my colleague to repeat, but I think let's just go through the ones that we do have so far and answer as best as we can, and we can take the rest later. Thank you. Sure.
I'll just answer one on xenophobia. And the commissioner and his team will answer the rest are more of a technical question. Xenophobia, to arrest, the first thing we do, we arrest the criminal. That's the first thing we do. You commit the crime, we find later who are you. You are a South African, you are a foreign national, you are whoever. But the first thing, we arrest the criminals. Arresting criminals cannot be xenophobic, whether they are national criminals, whether they are international criminals. We're not going to arrest you with all the guns from Israel and you complain that you are xenophobic because we arrest you coming here with very advanced methods of criminality. There is this increasing phenomenon where people cause and make crime as a group of certain people. Of late, we hear a lot about Basotho, especially when it comes to question of illicit mining. You hear a lot of that. But even those that you arrest, they are mixed with some South Africans. So there are criminals, which happen that majority of them will be Basotho, but there will be South Africans among them that we arrest, and other nationalities, Malawians, Mozambicans, Zimbabweans, a lot of them. That's not xenophobic. That is to arrest people that commit crime. And then South Africans will complain about people that come from other countries and cause crime in their areas. But South Africans will also complain about people that move from point A in South Africa to point B in South Africa to commit crime. When you come here in Gauteng, people complain a lot about people that come from KZN to cause crime in Gauteng. That country is xenophobic. When you go to Cape Town, people complain a lot about people that come from Engcobo, Ofimvaba, Tsala, Beach, where we were yesterday, about the crime they cause in Cape Town and move to Umtata. That country is xenophobic. So when people complain about people that come from Zim to cause crime here, is similar as they would complain about crime from Ofimvaba to Cape Town. Do they have evidence? Yes. Almost for 4 or 5 years ago, we have 18,000 foreign nationals that are in South African prisons, 18,000 of them, which means it's founded that there are criminals that come from other countries that commit crime here. So crime is crime. Xenophobic should not be used. Xenophobia should not be used as a protection of criminals, no matter where they come from. To us, we deal with criminals, whether it's Zim, whether it's from Mzumbe, whether it's from Potchefstroom, a criminal is a criminal. Thank you very much.
All right. General Masemola will answer the remaining questions before we wrap up this press conference.
Thanks, Lorenzo. The first question is about kidnapping guidelines over the festive season. We would like to urge a South African Police Service that not only women and children, but including all people, to look after yourself. Firstly, they should avoid flashing money. Sometimes people, bonus time, people flash a lot of money, and that will lead you to some of those incidences. But also, we urge children to, at all times, look after children, and it quite often happens over festive season that children get locked into cars at parking areas. And this time of the year, the temperatures are very high, and that results in some unintended consequences. But also, it is that time of the year which the parents have got the custody of their children because schools are closed. So it is important that parents look after the children at all times, stop going to shebeens and taverns overnight, leaving children alone at home, because those are some of the problems that we experience over this specific time of the year. But of course, in general, everybody, including men, make sure that you look after your money. Don't dispose your money to all the people. And if those that have got clubs, or they call them stokvels, you share money, and some of your colleagues of the club, they end up telling criminals what amount of money you have. And on your way to either shopping complexes or banks, that's where you might end up being kidnapped. So don't stay with cash. Those that have got clubs or stokvels, do not sit under a tree or a tent or in a house to go and share money. Some of your own members of the club are going to sell you off. Sometime that money will be taken before you even share it. So we advise the community that share the figures. Sit down, share the figures, and task whoever is the treasurer, whatever, I don't know, to direct the bank to do bank deposits to all those people that are entitled to those monies. Coming to the firearms of former Colonel Provincial, yes, as South African Police Service, we continue recovering firearms, and some of those, yes, and they get destroyed continuously. Provinces with most firearms recoveries, and also including cases of possession of firearms and ammunition. You'll find mostly that your KZN, Gauteng, Western Cape, they are leading. Currently, Gauteng, Western Cape, in terms of cases of possession of firearm, illegal possession of firearm and ammunition, there are, both these provinces, there are over 1,000 cases. And so it shows that there is far more firearms in those provinces, and we keep on recovering them. And of course, as we have started with the Operation Festive Season now, where we're going to have more of our police that are also, who are working in the offices, to be out there in the field to make sure that the community is safe. We will be having a lot of multidisciplinary roadblocks with other law enforcement agencies, and we will definitely make sure that we also search for firearms. We know that there are those that, as the minister said, that might be working in Gauteng. When they leave, they're going to leave with firearms. So we will be having roadblocks and making sure that they don't take those illegal firearms to other provinces. Mass shootings, in terms of what firearms are used, is mostly your rifles, and yes, rifles, majority of them are semi-automatic rifles, and also pistols are used in some of the incidents of mass shooting that we have experienced before. We do not think there is any legislation required to really control mass shooting, because even shooting one person is murder, is illegal, is sufficient enough. So I'm not sure if there would be legislation that would look at active shooters and so on. So we think current legislation is sufficient. Murder is a crime and it ends there. And of course, whether the firearm is legal or illegal, you cannot shoot any other person. There was a question about the rape of women and men. I'm not sure, General Skukuni, what that means. Yes, there are cases of rape of women and children, and of course, men and boys. I think it's somewhere in the statistic, General Skukuni did talk about that. With regard to missing children, I'm not sure about the every 5 hours there is children missing. But however, what we know is that whenever a child is missing, it gets reported. Some of the children, yes, they get found. Some, of course, they do not get found. They either get kidnapped or stolen. But of course, with regard to kidnappings, we did have quite a number of successes in the 2 provinces, and we are investigating some of those cases, and some we have already finalized, but most of the cases we are still investigating them. So I'm not sure about the every 5 hours children goes missing. But yes, people do get missing in the country, both children and adult people. But I'm not sure about the 5 hours every time if there is such. Thanks for the answer.
Super. Thank you so much, General Masimola. I think this really summarizes everything else, what we've touched on around the questions on the crime stats, but also questions of national importance when it comes to the safety of South Africans. So with that, I want to thank the Minister of Police, the Deputy Minister of Police, the generals present, as well as the acting civilian Secretariat of the Police Service, Mr. Ramaru, and of course all the provincial commissioners that have come far and wide from all corners of the country to come and join us today, but more importantly, you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. Good afternoon and have a good day.
Oh, so that's why she knows the dream at that time. She says, I really confused.
Today's press conference, as you know, we are releasing the crime statistics.